Dad was very gregarious.
He motivated you to care.
Dad loved a project.
He was fun to be with and had a terrific sense of humor.
He enjoyed people. He enjoyed life. He was very positive.
Hank understood the importance of art.
His family were artists and they were collectors, and it just was something he was passionate about.
Well, Hank grew up in Cincinnati. His daddy was a doctor.
My grandfather was very interested in the arts, and his family was very interested in the arts. And in his young life, he was a collector, and his wife, my grandmother Goodyear, was an artist, and so that was a big influence for Dad.
He was very active in the Cincinnati Museum. His daddy was. He was very interested in art and collected a lot of art.
Probably in 1950, Grandfather Goodyear decided he would come down to this area, South Georgia, and he bought a farm. He would come down in the fall and the spring, which was great for all of us because we had them there for several months at a time and enjoyed the farm. And I think Dad, after he finished college at Trinity College in Connecticut, decided he would go to Cornell, and he majored in agriculture. And he met Mother, who was down the road at Wells College, and they married, and Dad came down here to start his own business in agriculture and raise his family.
We moved to Albany about 40 years ago, actually moved in 1986, and shortly after we moved here, I was invited to have lunch with a gentleman named Hank Goodyear, which little did I know at that time of his love and his involvement in the museum and what a pillar he was, a pillar of support for the museum.
I think he had a lot of friends. He was very influenced by plantation owners. A lot of them had come from Ohio, and Dad was born and raised in Cincinnati, so he had a lot of connections.
As the families that owned those plantations would be in Albany during hunting season and so forth, he would make it a point to get them to the museum. He would host a dinner here for them, or he would meet a couple here and just show them on an afternoon tour. He constantly promoted the event with people that could help us. I think a lot of the paintings and some of the shows over the years are things that those plantation people actually put out on loan to the museum. We've never had that. Hank concentrated on what's on the walls and the importance of it, but also bringing a variety of people in to learn more and to keep building it.
Hank worked real hard to further the Albany Museum of Art. Hank was interested in the museum and interested in seeing it grow.
From an Eloise standpoint, hers was a labor of love out here. I mean, she was out here, more than weekly. I mean, it was not every day, but on a regular basis. And you'd walk in and you'd be in the middle of a project. Eloise would roll up her sleeves and help you with it. She just worked for whatever was better for the museum, and she was able to help guide a lot of the Haley Foundation members. So where we'd be today, we wouldn't have such a nice facility, wouldn't have the quality and the permanent collection that we have. Eloise was very supportive of all of the arts here in town, but this seemed to be her love. It wasn't just write a check from the Haley Foundation. Eloise rolled up her sleeve and put in hundreds of hours out here in developing the programs. And as I mentioned earlier, the docent program, she helped train others so that they could educate many as they came through. And but she did it with such a demeanor that you couldn't help but want to get a hug from her when you got through. She was great.
I think I feel so strongly and passionate about art is because I have always wanted to be an artist and to be a creator. And sadly, I think that gene skipped a generation and didn't land with me. By surrounding myself with it and being able to enjoy it in this way, I still feel connected to the arts. You don't have to be an artist to be an appreciator of the arts, and you don't have to create to still enjoy somebody else's creations. I guess really my first exposure to art was at the museum right here. I'd come up with my grandmother. She was an artist and an antique collector here in Albany. So I was very much surrounded by art and creators my whole life. But we would come up here and she'd show me the exhibits. And I remember even when Meadowlark, we first started here on Meadowlark, and they had all the kids come out and put your hands in the cement and the tiles. And I remember it just being such a moment that's really etched in my mind. And every time I come up to the museum, I still see those tiles out there and my grandmother's name and my brother's name and my little thumbprint. And I think from then, it just became something that was a part of me. Probably was really instrumental in cementing a thirst for knowledge and to see that in person. So what I saw as a child, I didn't see here in Albany, and it probably propelled me to want to go places in the world and move to New York, and so I could see some of those things in person. I really liked how easily you could find culture and art and music, how at any moment there was something happening and you didn't have to go far to find it. It could be just around the corner, street dancers, or on the subway, somebody singing. Museums were free on certain nights, so there was no excuse not to be able to enjoy that. As wonderful as other places can be, and moving and seeing new sights and living new places and experiencing new things, all of that's so rich and so valuable, but it lacks a certain sense of community or togetherness. I feel like I came back to create a legacy almost, and to be a part of something that's my parents were a part of and my grandparents were a part of, and so it just felt really natural to come back home. You don't have to live in a big city with a museum on every corner, or a street performer, or a singer on the subway to still find rich culture and arts and community.
The museum was started by Banks and Eloise Haley, and it was in an old stocking factory. And then they built the one on Slappy Drive, and then, it morphed into this big museum we have now.
I think that Hank understood the importance of art before he came here, and the importance of sharing that art. It didn't do any good to have it at home on the wall. And it was a vehicle for people to make Albany and South Georgia a better place by having quality art. And personally, I knew very little about art, but I knew about organizations. And what I learned from art was because of the forerunners such as Hank and Eloise of making it available and programs available to get educated on art. I was chairman of the membership committee for years, and it's easy to sell something when you have a quality facility like this and programming that was really outstanding. And anything I ever needed help on in that venue and I called Hank, he was there. Or if we were had an exhibition coming and a visiting artist, he and Janet would open their homes and let us have receptions there. Fundraisers, any aspect of the museum that needed help, you could call on Hank, and he would either help you or he would find someone that could if he didn't have that particular talent set, or at least he thought he didn't.
I think he cared about Albany, and I think he cared about making it a better place.
I remember early on when I got involved, Eloise was developing the docent program, which became a very strong, beneficial program on behalf of the museum. Eloise and the Haley Foundation have put in thousands and thousands of dollars of support for the projects over the years for this museum. We would not be where we are today without that. I cherished the many times that she would call me mid-afternoon and say, "Hey, John, how about coming over for a glass of sherry?" And I would go over to Miss Eloise's house, and we'd sit there, and we immediately got in her favorite topics, talking about the Albany Museum of Art, what we could do to make it better. And I hope what we've done with their money and their leadership and their guidance has helped us to be a museum that they both would look down and very much praise us for where we are today. But both of them are true jewels, and both of them are real treasures for this museum.
Granddaddy Goodyear had a a pretty distinguished collection, and most of the bulk of it was going to go to the Cincinnati Art Museum. And he and grandfather got together and decided that two of his paintings would come here to Albany for the permanent collection, which is one, the Indian encampment behind me, and then the other one was a Pottist, Edward Pottist. It was the bathing hour. And both of those artists were Cincinnati artists, and grandfather was well acquainted with them all through his years in Cincinnati. So this museum, everybody was real pleased to have these two.
Painting that's hanging in the wall in the other gallery in there is that Hank got from his family, a very valuable donation to this museum. And I know of other pieces of art that he's helped us acquire over the years.
Dad was a very positive person, and he never really looked back. He always looked forward. And I think that's what the museum is doing today, trying to go forward with expanding the museum, the arts here. I think he would be very happy. He's did that all his life with us. We always look forward to things.
I think he would be real proud of what the museum has been back when he was very involved, and we were all very involved, and where it is today and where it's going.
Well, I think his legacy is for the museum that it still exists because of him.
I'd like to see a community of people supporting the arts. I feel like there's so many opportunities in this town to do so, but yet sometimes a lack of awareness or participation. I think that we are so fortunate here to have the Museum of Art, and to be able to support it just feels like something that we should do as citizens of Albany.